close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Star Sport Podcast. I'm Jack McCarron, of course, of the Southern Star, and I'm joined in studio by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. On today's show, we'll be joined by Southern Star editor Mr. Con Downing, our resident rugby expert, and he's going to talk us through the weekend's international action as both the 20s and the seniors take on France in what look to be crucial encounters.
We'll also chat to athletics journalist Cathal Dennehy about Phil Healy's shown at the European Indoors in Glasgow over the weekend and ask what's next for the Ballineen women.
But first, at long last, we have some positive Cork football related sports news, Kieran. Both the men and the women had good wins in the league over the weekend, and we're just going to chat through those now. I suppose we'll start with the men because it was all doom and gloom on this podcast and everywhere else in Cork over the last few weeks. But finally, a scrappy but important win in Thurles against Tipperary. A sense of relief around the team?
Oh, it's a huge relief for the Rebels, Jack. As we all know, the first 4 games in the league in Division 2, Cork were rock bottom. They'd only 1 point. They lost 3 in a row. So going up to Thurles last Saturday night, they needed a win. They needed a result. If they lost, they were as good as relegated. They were relegated, in fact. So they got the result, and they got iffy performance. You know, it wasn't a perfect performance, a bit nervous at the end, but still it doesn't matter. I think at this stage, you know, they're in such a position that they needed to get a result, and it shows there's character in that team. Cork and Tipp, there's been little to separate them over the last couple of years, so for Cork to come out of it with 2 league points is so important, because it's a bit of belief it's going to give to the lads as well. But it also means, as Ronan McCarthy was saying after, that their fate is in their own hands as such in terms of avoiding relegation down to Division 3. They still have 2 games left. They're still 2 very, very tough games. They're home to Donegal there on Saturday week, I think March 16th. And then after that, they have the away game against Armagh, who are also they'll be looking to avoid the relegation scrap. So they're not out of the woods by any stretch, Jack, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, before we go too in-depth on their next couple of games, I think it's important to just really focus in on the Tipperary game, because as has been noted in everywhere, it's their first competitive win since May 2018, so that's 9 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I think when you get onto a run like that, having been involved in sport myself and watching sport for my entire life, getting on a run like that, it feels when you're inside it that it's impossible, that the win is never going to come. So then when you finally get a win as scrappy as it was against Tipperary, it just a weight lifts from your shoulders. And now the talk going into the next 2 games is going to be, they're coming off a win against Tipperary, their tails are up, things are looking up, rather than they haven't won in what's now 10 months, because it'll be towards the end of March. So I think that was a hugely important thing for the side.
100%. Like you said there before, it was doom and gloom. Every story about the Cork footballers over the last couple of weeks was negative. They lost here, they lost there, they didn't play well, they did this, they did that. So for them to turn it on their head, to get that win, and like we said, it was scrappy, but it's the result that mattered here, because even for those lads going in training this week, they're going in off the back of a win, and that'll do huge for their confidence, Jack. You know, that'll really it'll get them to help focus in on the next game too, which is important. But to look at the positives from beating Tipperary, the first positive is they won. They won. Kind of bottom line, Cork won a game, and that's so important. I suppose if we're kind of looking from the West Cork point of view, great to see Rory didn't get the goal. I suppose over the last couple of years, Rory has come on leaps and bounds. He's become such an important player for Cork. I think he was Cork's best footballer last year. He's like I said, he's really come on leaps and bounds. Cork played a 2-man full forward line the last day inside there. Mark Collins and Michael Hurley, 2 Castlehaven men, which was fantastic to see as well. And it was great to see Mark Collins played further up the field, because we've been saying here the last couple of weeks, when you've Mark too deep in the sweeper role, it just doesn't suit him, you know. Kind of to have Mark closer to the goal is where you want him to be. So there's a couple of positives there. Still, it's not perfect by any stretch, you know. Kind of when you're thinking further ahead, even come the championship and stuff, kind of Munster championship, Kerry are still streets ahead of what else there is in Munster. If you look at it, Kerry are top of Division 1 at the moment. The next 3 Munster teams are, I think, the bottom 3 teams in Division 2.
Okay, so let's just play a little game here then while we're talking about the Munster Championship. I want you to give me a ranking from 1 to 6 of what you think is the hierarchy in Munster football at the minute. Obviously, Kerry are number 1. Put the rest in order for us.
Kerry are number 1. I would put Clare number 2, Cork number 3, just ahead of Tipperary, but that can change. Cork, there's very little to separate Tipperary. And I think we have to mention too that Tipperary were missing a couple of players last Saturday night. It wasn't a full strength Tipperary team, and it could be different come the championship. But I would put Clare ahead of Cork. I'd have Kerry, Clare, Cork, Tipperary, Limerick and Waterford.
Yeah.
So like that can change. There's little to separate those 3 teams, Clare, Cork and Tipperary at the moment. But that just shows you where Cork football is.
Imagine saying 10 years ago that Cork, even 5 years ago, were going to be behind Clare and Tipperary in Kieran McCarthy's Munster top 6. You heard it here first, folks. But just on another side note, we're going to go for another slight segue here. Just that there's been a lot of talk throughout the league of how Dublin's games should be taken out of Croke Park for various reasons, but one of the reasons that always interests me is the atmosphere when there's a small crowd in Croke Park is terrible. It feels like it's a room and there's just noise. You can hear the players on the field. It's an unusual thing. I'm sick of seeing reports of Tipp football games being played in Semple Stadium with like 500 people and 7 dogs at the games. It can't be enjoyable for the players. I know it's the league and it's early in the season, but my God, there's surely another ground in Tipperary where the footballers could play their games. It just annoys me to see such an empty stadium.
So you want to start a campaign to take the Tipp footballers out of Semple Stadium?
That's exactly what I want to start. Forget about Dublin and all the bigwigs, the Dublin bias and the Dublin media. Down in Munster here, we want to take Tipp footballers out of Thurles.
I'll be interested to see how our Tipp listeners feel about that one, but you can always email us your views to sport@thesouthernstarTV and for the attention of Jack McCarron.
The point is, there won't be any Tipp listeners for 2 reasons. Primarily because nobody in Tipperary is going to listen to a West Cork Sport podcast, but also there are no Tipp football fans who care, because I would say the vast majority of I think it was about 1,000 people who were in Thurles for the Cork Tipp game were probably Rebel fans. So I don't think we're going to get any complaints from Tipperary football people. There are very few. There are 30 and they're all on the Tipp panel.
Just to point out too that Tipperary senior Robbie Kiley obviously plays for Carbery Rangers over in Ross Carbery. So Robbie, if you're listening to this, feel free to come on the show someday and debate this out with Jack here. I look forward to that.
Yeah, I look forward. Robbie, I'd love to have you in, and you can tell us what you think about playing in an empty Semple Stadium for all your home games for the last however many years. Anyway, we'll move on from the Cork senior footballers for a minute to focus on the ladies footballers, who also bounced back from a disappointment last weekend to hammer Monaghan away on Sunday. It was 5-17 to 1-4. Kieran, a great result for the team.
Oh, it's huge, you know. They were so disappointed to lose that game in Páirc Uí Rinn against Tipperary. Tipperary got the late goal there Saturday week ago. So for Cork to bounce back away to Monaghan in such emphatic fashion, Jack, is it's a testament to the team again. Like we said, they're 5-17 to 1-4. Orla Finn hit 1-8 on a Terry O'Sullivan from Beara, had a superb game as well. She got 1-3. The Mourne Abbey players were back in this week as well. You Ciara O'Sullivan and Darren O'Sullivan. They both got goals when they came on. Again, another huge plus point. So that win was so important, Jack, because it moves Cork into the top 4 in Division 1 of the league. So they're in a semi-final spot. And they'll want to get into semi-final because they'll want to get more games under their belt before the championship. Because it's still very much a young team, you know. Boss Stevie Fitzgerald there, he's trying out players. And the team isn't settled as such. Like we just said, the Mourne Abbey players have been missing for the first 3 or 4 games of the league. So to get that result away from home, it just sets them up for the second half of the league.
And what did it tell you about the fact that Cork, I know there's probably a win involved, but Cork actually held Monaghan completely scoreless even in the first half, which says something about how Cork are setting up defensively. They're obviously very strong. So plenty of positives to take.
Oh, there is, again, 100%. Like, it's like to hold an inter-county team scoreless is a feat in itself. But again, it's worth pointing out, Monaghan were rock bottom of Division 1 before the game. I'm just looking at the table here. They'd lost their 4 games. They've now conceded 84 points in those 4 games. So that's what, an average of 21 points. They've a scoring difference of minus 53. So things aren't going too well in Monaghan at the moment.
You're saying plenty of positives, but maybe don't get too excited by the result.
It is. When you look at the table and you look at Monaghan's form so far in the league, like they to say they haven't set the world on fire would be the understatement of the year so far. So again, great win for Cork. Fantastic to go away from home, get a couple of points, but to keep things in perspective, because this Ballineen team isn't going too well, Jack. So.
And just from what you've seen so far and read and heard from people who've been at the games home and away, where is this Cork team? Are they All-Ireland contenders realistically?
Well, they were All-Ireland finalists last year, so you'd have to put them back in contention again this year. I think it's well documented that they've lost a load of players over the last couple of years. They lost that strong, experienced cohort, the Breed Stacks, the Breed Corkeries, the Arena Buckleys. They're all gone, kind of exited stage left. So the new breed now is they're after taking centre stage, and there's some fantastic talent in the way up. You have those experienced players there, Orla Finn, Ciara O'Sullivan, Martina O'Brien, really, really good players. Then you go down to the younger players, even like Emer Scally, like she's young, she's only in her early 20s, but she's been around for years, you know. Anya Terry's another very, very good experienced player. The Kylie's sisters from Valley Rovers have come on board this year, and they look naturals at senior level. Laura O'Mahony here from Skibbereen has played a couple of league games. Claire O'Shea from Beara. So there's lots of young players getting their chance in the league, Jack, and they're all putting their hands up. And I think what Efi Fitzgerald wants come to championship, he wants a strong panel to pick from. He wants to know that he can depend on someone if he turns to the bench in a championship game, whether it's a Munster final or going through to the All-Ireland series, that if he goes from the players 15 to 20 to 25, that the player that comes on, that he can count on him to do a job. So he's going to, touch wood, finish the league with a stronger panel, and Cork will have a lot of options going forward, and are definitely contenders for All-Ireland.
Well, you heard it here first on the Star Sport podcast. Double winning All-Ireland champions by the end of the season, Cork men and Cork women. Powers of positivity. Let's go. Coming up after the break, we'll be joined by Southern Star editor Con Downing, and we're going to chat all things rugby.
Thank you for listening to the Star Sports podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star, featuring our award-winning sports section that has everything a sports fan in West Cork could want. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world. The Southern Star, #1 for sport in West Cork.
I'm joined in studio now by Southern Star editor Con Downing. And Con, it's a big weekend for both the Ireland 20s and the senior team. We'll start off with the under 20s first. They're home to France in Musgrave Park on Friday night.
That's right, yeah. This is their second home game of the season, and their last home game of the season. They're playing France, who of course are the current under 20 world champions, and they'll be pretty formidable. Ireland are out ahead at the moment because they've won all three of their games against England, Scotland and Italy. And now the other two teams behind them are the two teams they're playing next. That's France, who have an extra bonus point, have won two of their games, and so have Wales, who the Irish will be playing in Colwyn Bay in the last game of the Six Nations. So as things stand at the moment, they're in pole position for a Grand Slam and possibly the Triple Crown as well. But I suppose the Grand Slam is the first order of business, in that France don't count for the Triple Crown. So this game on Friday night in Irish Independent Park, or Musgrave Park as we prefer to call it, is going to be a vital one, given the depth of talent that would be on that French team. Now, I suppose Ireland theoretically should be better than them, because Ireland beat England and then France beat England, so maybe
by that maths
yes, exactly, you just might, but Ireland have the 3 wins as opposed to France only having 2 wins. So,
and there's plenty of local interest down here in West Cork too, Con. We've 2 local lads on the Ireland under 20 team, Josh Wycherley and John Hodnett, isn't it?
Yes, and I think that both of them have more or less picked themselves for the team for the 3 matches. You know, the under 20s are notorious, or have been in the past, for changing personnel quite a bit. So I think that the fact that these 2 guys have been playing so well and managed to nail down their places. Well, now we're speaking ahead of the team being announced, but we're assuming that both will be on it, given how good their performances were in the 3 games that they've played so far. So definitely John Hodnett has really been good. I mean, as we spoke before, the first game against England in Musgrave Park, he really stood out at number 8, and Josh the same in playing at loose at prop. So it's hopefully they'll both be on the team and will acquit themselves well. For anybody incidentally who can't make it there, the game is being shown live on RT2 television on Friday evening, so well worth tuning in to see the depth of local talent we have here in West Cork.
Like we said before, Con is an expert in all things rugby. So, Con, it's prediction time for the Ireland under-20s against France on Friday night. What's going to happen?
I think it'll be a close game, but hopefully the home advantage will help, because the Irish manager said after the English game that it was the support of the crowd that drove the team on to beat England, and that getting over that vital first hurdle was very important to them, and it's been onwards and upwards ever since.
Attention will turn then to the senior team for Sunday. Like we're still in with a shout of winning the Six Nations. It's that win against Scotland was fierce and nervy, Con. So where do we stand now going in against the French on Sunday?
It's very difficult to say, because not only was the win against Scotland nervy, but they didn't step it up the gear. They should have stepped it up when they played Italy in Rome afterwards. No, they won the game and they got the bonus point out of it, but they need 2 bonus point wins to have any chance of claiming the championship in the next 2 games, and they are possibly the 2 hardest games, because the French are coming here having improved a bit like Ireland have, but they're coming here with absolutely nothing to lose, and we know how they spoiled the opening of Cork Park to rugby a decade ago or so. So you always have to be careful of the French, because they're a wounded animal type of thing, and they're the most dangerous to be playing. And then of course there's the away game in Cardiff to Wales for the last game of the series, so that really is putting it up to it. And looking at how impressive Wales were in beating England, I think they're going to be a real threat at home and very difficult to overcome. But look, I suppose if Ireland even got a second place in the championship out of it, it wouldn't be a bad result at all.
They've been 3, it was remiss of me to miss the Italy game, but they've been 3. They haven't been great performances by Ireland. When do we as fans start to get worried with the World Cup later in the year? Is this just a blip in form, or is it something more serious that's happening at the moment?
I suppose it's a crisis of confidence of some description. I suppose when you finish at the top at the end of last season, like they did after beating the All Blacks, the only way is down after that, and it's, I suppose, a case of how do you arrest your fall. I mean, it took when England peaked there a few years ago, it took them about a year to get back on track. Now we haven't got a year in to really do this before Joe Schmidt leaves, and some pundits would argue that the fact that he announced his departure has been a factor in this too, but I just don't know. It's so difficult to see. I mean, really they need just to keep stepping up a gear every game, and hopefully it will come back on track again. But it's easier said than done, because all these games are titanic battles. Even Italy, who wouldn't be rated and who are bottom of the table, are very difficult to beat and break down, especially since Conor O'Shea took them over, and they weren't far off the pace the last day. When I suppose our half-backs are the key. They were our main threat to every other team, and Conor Murray just doesn't seem to be up to match speed totally, and Johnny Sexton seems to be getting a terrible battering, but whenever the two of them click, it will, I think everything will kick back into gear again. You could see the frustration when Johnny Sexton came off against Italy.
You could see he just wasn't happy with his performance. It's indicative of the team right now. They're just, like you said, they're probably a lack of confidence. They're just struggling to hit that top gear, to find that top gear. That's
it. And it may be a cliche, but they say that form is temporary, but class is permanent. And I do think in our two half-backs and across the whole team, we have a pretty classy outfit. And I think that it'll kick back in at some stage. How soon is the question, of course.
I'm going to ask you to put your reputation as, again, the West Cork rugby expert, put your reputation on the line, call Sunday's game, Ireland-France.
Ireland-France, a narrow victory for Ireland.
We have to mention too Laura Sheehan. She might get hopefully she might get a run
well,
out this
hopefully,
weekend.
she scored a brilliant try against Italy there in Parma when she came on as a sub, and I think the squad have a few injuries, so hopefully she'll be at least on the bench and maybe even make it onto the first 15. But certainly her try against Italy was very impressive.
So fantastic. Thanks, Con, for joining us, and the best luck to all the West Cork rugby players who are in Ireland international action this weekend.
Thank you for listening to the Star Sports Podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star, featuring our award-winning sports section that has everything a sports fan in West Cork could want. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world. The Southern Star, #1 for sport in West Cork.
Now, over in Glasgow this past weekend, Ballineen woman and West Cork Sports Star of the Year, Phil Healy, was in action in the European indoors. Kieran, it didn't all go to plan for Phil though, did it?
No, Jack, certainly did not. But disappointing. Phil crashed out, you could say, at the semi-final stage on Friday. But I spoke with athletics journalist Cathal Dennehy earlier about what went wrong for Phil. Thanks for joining us on the Star Sport Podcast, Cathal. You were in Glasgow for the European Indoor Athletics Championships last weekend, and there was a lot of local interest here in Bandon Athletic Club's Phil Healy, who was a medal prospect in the women's 400 metres. But it didn't pan out as Phil had hoped, Cathal. Can you talk us through the heat first and what that meant for her semi-final?
Yeah, so in indoor 400 metre running, the lane draw is almost everything. When you start, it's 6 lanes, and the closer you are to the outside lane, benefits in 2 ways. The first of those is that obviously it's a very tight turn indoors, so you get to run a more gentle tangent around the curves, which at Phil Healy's kind of speed matters a lot. But the biggest factor is that the starting blocks for the lane 6 is actually kind of up on the hill, essentially the sloped bend. So first lap you benefit from a net elevation drop. So you literally go from 2 or 3 meters high, whereas the person in lane 1 is stuck on the same level. It's the reason that they scrapped the 200 meters indoors, because it was so much of a bias towards the outside lanes. So Phil Healy, because she had a great ranking, she went into the championships ranked 4th. She drew the outer lane in her 400 meter heat on Friday, which was great, and she has incredible foot speed, probably the fastest in the field of anyone in Europe over 200 meters, and she utilized that to very good effect. She absolutely ripped through the first 200 meters. She clocked, I think it was 24.4 seconds for the first 200 meters, which I believe was the fastest split of anyone in any race, including the final over the weekend in Glasgow. In hindsight, it made perfect sense, because, as she said, the person who's out front in a 400 meter controls the race. You run the shortest line, you don't get involved in elbows, traffic, all those problems. So she had a comfortable lead in her heat, but upon reflection, as Phil would say herself, it was probably a fraction too quick, which I guess was played out towards the end of that heat, because she came off the bend with about a 3 meter lead with a lap to go, and then suddenly she just found her legs going from under her in the last maybe 30-40 meters of that race, and got passed by 2 athletes, which obviously was, in a sporting sense, was a disaster for her, because there was only 2 automatic spots go through to the semi-final. It meant she had to wait. Her time was 53.13, which thankfully was enough to get through to the semi-final later that day. But as we mentioned, the lane bias, if you only go through as a fastest loser, you get put in an inside lane. So Phil that evening lined up, it was in lane 2, and I was actually writing something for the Irish Examiner there today, and I said trying to finish in the top 2 from there, it's essentially like trying to climb Mount Everest without oxygen. It's not that it's impossible, it's just that very, very few people are going to be able to do it. And sure enough, Phil, she gave it her absolute best. I mean, she hammered through the first 200 meters in her semi-final, put herself into the race, and was 3rd, turning for home with a lap with about 50 meters to run, at which point she unfortunately got clipped by the Italian runner. She'd readily admitted herself wasn't going to get there into one of those top 2 spots, and obviously that ruined her race. She still managed to run 53.65, which was a good time given she very nearly fell over with 50 meters to run. But again, I suppose if she's to look back on it, she'll probably rue that heat, and perhaps the way she dispensed her energy, probably the tiniest bit too hard on the first lap, which left her with a little bit too less energy, I guess, coming home. But that's very easy to say in hindsight.
It's like you were saying there about the lanes, and because of the heat, she was in lane 2 in the semi-final. Like for her to get in the position to be kind of third coming down that final straight and to be in a position to almost strike, she did really well to kind of to have herself again in a position where she could make a move, didn't she?
Yeah, brilliant. When you're in lane 2, I mean, lane 2, what you see happening, or lane 1, is they just get left behind and they're never in the race. Lanes 5 and 6 after at the halfway stage are just completely gone. But Phil utilised that brilliant 200-metre pace that she has to get up outside the athletes in 3 and 4, which is really impressive because that's a massive difference to overcome. And managed to slot herself into third position with a lap to go in that semi-final. She gave it absolutely everything, and she probably would have run in and around 53 seconds or probably well below it, and finished third in her semi-final, which she actually still finished third despite the trip. But yeah, I think when she looks back at it, she'll go, if only I had went off maybe a tiniest bit steadier in my heat, I would have had more coming home. I would have been in the top 2 in my heat, which meant I would have got an outer lane in the semi-final. And the times that went through to the final, they're nothing that Phil hasn't run this year. She's run 52.3, which would have actually got the bronze medal, I think, her season's best in the final. And so she will rue it as a missed opportunity. But again, she's young enough that you don't need to come away from these championships completely depressed about things. She's going to get many, many more opportunities at European indoor level and European outdoor and even global level to make an impact. So it'll be a lesson learned for her.
Watching RTE over the weekend, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday for their coverage, they made a lot of mention to kind of the championship running. It's a lot different, isn't it, to kind of the normal kind of, like when you get to a championship like that, there's a lot more rough and tumble when it's indoors and stuff. But you like Phil's PBs, 52.08. Kind of, but it's very hard to run a PB like that, is it, when you're in a championship final like that? Because does everything go out the window? What's it like, Cathal?
Yeah, it's nigh on impossible. I mean, it's not. I guess it's not impossible, but it's certainly no one cares about time. I mean, obviously, if you run the quick time, you'll get in, but it's not the priority. It's all about man to man, woman to woman racing. And yeah, it's very difficult. And obviously 400-meter indoors is completely different because so much hinges on that break of lanes at the halfway point after the first lap. So Phil is someone who has that weapon that the others don't have, pure raw foot speed, and she used it well. But again, that's all well and good, but you also need to finish the race. David Gillick over the years proved he was the master of indoor 400-meter running in terms of he won 2 European indoor senior titles. He would go out for the first 200 meters. He never quite, relative to Phil Healy, had that kind of raw 100-meter, 200-meter pace. But he was just about quick enough to get to the break in contention. And the great thing about Gillick was that he was always strong enough to bring it home. At the moment in Phil's career, she's only 24 years old. She's transitioned from a 60-meter, 100-meter runner up to 200 even last year, and now up to 400. And I think really her future ultimately will be at the 400, but it's a slow thing to develop that endurance, that speed endurance that you need to truly succeed. And Phil has gradually been developing it, getting better and better each year. I think, and we saw last year with those 100-meter and 200-meter national records, her speed is better than ever. The next part is the speed endurance, and that's going to come for her eventually. She will inevitably run 51 point something for 400 meters, which will make her a medal contender at European indoors, European outdoors, and maybe even try and get into eventually a final, who knows, at 400 meters over world and Olympic level. If she can get down maybe under 51 seconds, that would be the long-term goal, but a bit to go yet.
Phil's very much on an upward curve, isn't she? She's getting faster. Like Shane McCormick was telling me last week that her endurance improved over the winter, so she has more endurance now, and she still has that speed. So, like you were just saying there, Cathal, there's a lot more to come from Phil over the next couple of years, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to her afterwards, and even to her coach Shane McCormick as well. And I think really the focus of her outdoor season now, I think any short sprinter who moves to the 400, there's a reason Usain Bolt said he'd never go near it. It's a lot of hard work and a whole lot of pain compared to the short sprints. So Phil said really she'll be delighted to get back to the 200. I think at the moment, if you were to look at her PBs, the strongest PBs, perhaps the 1 and 2 really are her strongest events right now. And she's been sub 23 seconds for 200 meters. She hasn't quite got the 400-meter PB up to the same level of ability yet, but I think that's going to come in time. She's already run 52.08 for 400 meters indoors, 52.19 outdoors. I believe she will mature into a low 51-second sprinter, which, like I said, will put her in medal contention at Europeans outdoor and indoors. But at the moment, she says the focus for the summer is going to be the World University Games. It is a global championship, but it's not a major championship, obviously, because so many professional athletes are not in college, and the best of, say, the NCAA sprinters in America don't tend to go there. So we saw that really. Thomas Barr used that to good effect. He won a medal at the 2015 World University Games, and he used that as a great platform for the Olympics next year. And I think Shane McCormick and Phil are now sitting down going, let's use World Universities in 2019 as a springboard. Let's go there. Let's get into a final, maybe even get a medal. And then we can come away from that, look at the Tokyo Olympics, just survey the lay of the land. Probably she'll need to run under 52 seconds to get to the Tokyo Olympics. And then
just before I let you go, Cathal, I have to ask you about Sunday night in Glasgow. What a fantastic night for Irish athletics. Mark English and Kieran McCarthy. Can you talk to us about that? Like, what was it like to be over there in Glasgow for a night where 2 bronze medals came home?
Yeah, it was an incredible night. It was funny. The night, about 24 hours earlier, I was just on Twitter, and I think when Mark English, Kieran McCarthy was already in the final, but everyone else, you're talking halfway through Saturday, lunchtime Saturday, you're talking a 16-team 16-person Irish team has been reduced to 2 athletes halfway through a championship, because everyone was just going out in heats, and obviously Phil in the semi-final. So I think when Mark got barged or tripped and run out of the race by that British athlete falling in front of him, and then didn't get through, I think I tweeted something like, it's a completely dire championships right now for the Irish, because we're down to Kieran McCarthy, and that's all we have. Obviously, Mark put in the protests. There was high drama Saturday night. He managed to rightfully get reinstated into the final because the obstruction was in no way his fault. And critically, I guess, Mark was smart enough as an experienced athlete to finish the race. You can't get advanced to a final if you don't finish the race, if you sit on the track sulking. Funnily enough, Killian Green, the 400-meter runner, didn't actually know that the day before. And we were up in the stands when he got tripped, and he got up and sort of stood around and walked around. And obviously the fall was not his fault. And me and one of the Irish coaches, we were kind of waving at him going, run, get to the finish side of the track. He couldn't hear us. It turns out he actually had a radial fracture in his elbow, I think it was, so it wouldn't have mattered. He was in a sling for the rest of the weekend. But Mark had the know-how to do that, finish the race. He got put into the final by the track referee, and then suddenly it was game on for Sunday night all of a sudden. And really, when Mark managed to get that bronze medal, you knew, like, right, Irish have got a medal. This is all we ever need to really call it a successful championship, certainly here. But then Ciara even mentioned then, and she was about 75 minutes later, Ciara walked out for the 1500 final. She said news had obviously got to her in the call room that Mark had won a medal, and she said to herself, perfect, and rather than going, oh, he's done it, pressure's on now, she went, no, we're going to bring two medals home from here, not one. And that's exactly what she did. It was one of the races of Ciara's life. Laura Muir is a class apart, the champion in the women's 1500, but the Polish athlete in second, she's run 2 minutes for 800. She's a multiple medalist at European level, fantastic championship athlete. And with 100 meters to go, Ciara absolutely blew by her in the hunt for that silver medal. Unfortunately for Ciara, was it premature? Maybe, but it's easy to say that in hindsight. She just, in Aoi, as she always does, came back and got the better of her for the silver medal. But yeah, 2 brilliant bronzes. And for 2 athletes like Kieran McCarthy and Mark English, if you were to be an objective judge maybe a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, you probably would have said about both of them their best days are behind them, even though they were only, back then they would have been like 23, 24. You would have said too many injuries, too many bad championships. We've probably seen the best of Mark English and Kieran McCarthy, and anyone who was saying that, they were well and truly proved wrong on Sunday night. So yeah, magical night.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great note to finish on, because with Irish athletics, with Phil, hopefully more to come with Ciara there, Mark English and stuff, the future's bright for Irish athletics. So Mira, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll touch base again and we'll keep progress on Phil throughout the season.
Thank you for listening to the Star Sports Podcast. Don't forget to pick up this week's Southern Star, featuring our award-winning sports section that has everything a sports fan in West Cork could want. Available every Thursday in shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world. The Southern Star, #1 for sport in West Cork.
Now, welcome back to the Star Sport Podcast. And Kieran, it's that time of the week, everybody's favourite time of the week, my favourite time of the week. What's coming up in this week's sports section? Last week was a cracker.
If last week's was a cracker, Jack, this one is out of the park. We're knocking this one out of the park. Like, I'm a small bit biased, but this one is a really, really good sports section, I have to say. We're going to start off with a bit of rugby. We have a 2-page special on Clonakilty Rugby. They've had a fantastic season. They were in Division 2 of the Munster Junior League. They've won promotion to Division 1, which is fantastic because Clonakilty is a club that was senior a couple of years ago, relegated from the senior ranks to the junior ranks down to Division 1. They were there a couple of seasons. Things went badly. Relegated 2 years ago down to Division 2, so they slipped quite badly. But they went down to Division 2. Eddie Knowles came in as the manager. They've rebuilt the club, brought in young fellas, kept some experienced heads as well, and it's worked. They've got that winning mentality back. They've won 12 out of their 13 league games this year. So we chatted to Eddie Knowles and to Mike O'Hay. So it's a 2-page special on Clonakilty and the rise of rugby there, which is fantastic. We have a preview too of Sacred Heart Secondary School Clonakilty are in an All-Ireland Colleges Junior B Camogie final against St Mary's of Middleton this Saturday in Castle Road, Mahon. Fantastic achievement for the Clonakilty school to get to an All-Ireland final. They won the Munster final against St Mary's of Middleton back in January. So touch wood that they can repeat the trick. They've already beaten Middleton twice in this year's campaign, so we're hoping that they'll make it a hat-trick of wins and bring an All-Ireland Junior Camogie title back to West Cork. We chat to Phil Healy too. We were talking to Phil after her disappointment at Euro Indoors, so we have that interview. And as well as that, on the GA front, we have a report from Clonakilty against Carbery Rangers in the Kelleher Shield. They played there on Friday night, so they're two local rivals. It was a good win for Carbery Rangers. Clonakilty are missing 4 or 5 of their county players, which will hamper them as the league goes on, having to play without the likes of Mark White, Sean White, who else is there? There's David Lowney and a couple of more players who are involved, Thomas Clancy as well. So we've all that and a lot more. It's a cracker, Jack.
Well, you heard that. It's a cracker from the man himself, sports editor Kieran McCarthy. And of course, the Southern Star is available in all good news agents and shops every Thursday morning. And if you happen to be listening to this podcast from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Argentina, Anguilla, anywhere, you can also read the Southern Star sports section. Just click on to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper. Buy it there. Read it from anywhere in the world.
And it's even available in Tipperary, Jack, I hear.
Apparently so. Well, definitely now I'm going to make sure to publicise it in Tipperary. But Kieran, we ran a competition last week for a Cork GAA jersey, which would feel like a much better prize to have won after the weekend we've just had with the 2 senior teams winning.
You can wear it with pride now.
Where exactly? I would have worn it with pride anyway, but now you can really wear it with pride. But Kieran, the question was, who had beaten Cork in Páirc Uí Rinn the previous Saturday? The answer was
Meath.
Well done to anyone who answered that, and we got loads of entries, so thanks very much. We were overwhelmed by the amount of entries we had, so once again, thanks, and we'll have more competitions throughout the season. Kieran?
And the winner, drum roll, and the winner is Noel O'Donovan from Castle Freak. Thanks so much for entering, Noel, and we have a jersey winging its way to you very, very soon. So all that's left to say is thank you very much for joining us again. We'll be back next week at the same time, so make sure to rate, review and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher or anywhere else you listen to the show. Thanks very much, and we'll see you again at the same time next week.